Greetings, hello and welcome back to Long War of the Chosen, the Mod Jam Plus Highlander Campaign class overview, review, thoughts. I don't know what to best title this video, and that's something for future YouTuber to figure out. But what we're going to do in this video is look at all the classes that we used in this campaign, at all the soldiers, and have 2 or 3 thoughts about the spec, what worked, what didn't work, and everything else. Before we started off, a few things I just want to put out there. First of all, this is not... Please don't consider this a guide, right? My play experience with many of these classes is very limited. Some of them I only played in this campaign. I played 2 other Highlander campaigns, so with the same setup on stream. That still doesn't mean we got to experience all the classes and all the specs, and maybe I built them wrong, or maybe they were changed in the meantime. Second of all, a big shout out, a big thank you to the modders. They were very receptive on feedback. They're super helpful. I know there were some changes based on the feedback from the campaign, and I try to be super respectful. You know, the modders always they are using their own free time. They're not getting paid for this to make the game more awesome for us, and I have the biggest respect for all the class modders. And a big thank you for just doing what you're doing. You're awesome. And then, without any further ado, let's go into it. So what we're gonna do is just gonna go to the soldier ability screen, and then we're just gonna tap through all the soldiers with a few comments left here and there. An occasional sip of water, and maybe I'll occasionally hit the pause recording button to collect my thoughts. So starting off with the Titan, worked really well in this campaign. I think we had high mobility, low aim, and that's why we went for the whole both barrels route. I can certainly see like a more cannon-oriented build also working, although at that point it kind of competes with the gunner, and I think it's clearly weaker, if only for the lack of any sort of shredding. Not sure what you can do with middle row. I think the middle row is more like to augment the other skills if you don't like them at all. I think this is a very like reliable build. I don't think we needed Butcher to make it work. So you're not like there's going to be some classes where I think you need the right RNG in the XCOM row to really make them pop, but I think the Titan worked fairly well and have fun. That's like I do like both barrels characters in general, so the Titan just, you know, was on the right side from the get-go, and yeah, I think this worked really well. Took some time to get online though, like this, but that's the same with all kind of both barrels builds, especially if they don't have both barrels to begin with. But yeah, once we got there, and the combo of both barrels and whippet is just super strong. So yeah, enjoyed the Titan. Now the Shinobi, not a very new class, but they did receive a rework, I think about 2/3 through the campaign, where Kuruka changed so this is the Mod Jam Shinobi version. And added, well, certainly changed up the whole shooty Shinobi build, and also added the kind of stealth-focused interactions here, where you can do something with re-stealthing and doing attacks from stealth with Dead of Night. Which I haven't actually played around with enough to make sure it really works. I was trying to build Andy into a melee stealth, so basically as long as your melee attack comes from outside of vision, he would get 100% crit chance. I don't think we've made it work all that much, but I also don't think we had him in action all that much. So still a lot of things I want to say to explore with that new Shinobi variant. And yeah, I think you can build something there that plays very similar to the Saboteur that I come to later. Although I was kind of thinking, is there... there's no quick feet, no extra actions when coming out of stealth. That's something I was looking for just now. Maybe that's something you can get in the XCOM row, I don't know. So the new Shinobi, certainly interesting. And you still have the bread and butter, just go bottom row here for melee. And yeah. Also really got a lot of, like, scouting report, I was always, yeah, it's okay, I guess. Now I think it's really strong. I got around on this, got convinced that it's actually a top high priority pick, and super happy to have it here. Alright, moving on. Got a lot of classes to go through. The Commando. Fantastic officer candidate, like by my command, is super strong. And almost feels now that I've played a little bit with it that, oh boy, I wish all officers had that, because being able to use your officer ability, use your command officer ability, and get the action refunded, does not end your turn, opens so many new options. That's just fantastic. Also, just in general, very strong with sting grenades and the combat drug smoke. I was often complaining that, you know, you can only throw one grenade per turn, and then you have also the cooldown, so you can't throw a sting grenade every turn, you need to wait a turn in between. But I think that's actually a good way to balance it, because otherwise it would be too overpowered over something like a support Grenadier officer. If only just for by your command, or the fact that with light ordnance and full kit he has so many grenade charges he never runs out. Now, there are some I have not played with any of the other talent choices really, and I don't really see too much room for changing it up if you want to go the officer kind of route. I wish you could somehow fit in blue screen bombs, but given up combat drops, not an option, I think. And similar here goes. So these are really, I like tough decisions on talent trees, and both of these ranks here are really tough decisions and make you think about what you actually want to do with the officer. I'm still not sure why something like Call for Fire shows up in the Master Sergeant row on so many classes, or in the XCOM Master Sergeant row. It's like, to me, this is a fairly, really weak ability. I don't know. I would struggle to find 10 AP to buy it if it showed up down here. It's like, is that really worth it? Allies in a 7-tile radius going to Overwatch, whatever. Similar coordinate fire. Like, 5-turn cooldown on it. I don't know. I just don't see use space for these kind of abilities. This is not about the class now. This is about the abilities and why it is ranked so highly, and what am I missing there that's supposedly making them good. Anyway, moving on to the next class. Reaper. Not much to say. Like, there's a little bit of wonkiness where it looks like this is the Proficiency Reaper, but it's actually the vanilla or the Mod Jam version of the Reaper. I am self-nerving by not taking Banish. I think in the current version of Mod Jam and Long War of the Chosen, Banish is the pick. Banish is actually, in my opinion, overpowered a little bit. It's too strong. And that's why I kind of shoot myself in the foot by not taking it. But I also think that Death Dealer is working out fairly nicely. Consistent kill shots, although there's some inconsistencies with Death Dealer that we've seen, where the Death Dealer crit bonus wasn't applying to unactivated enemies or something like that, because they didn't count as flanked. There was some issue on the Cygate mission where suddenly the crit bonus from Get Some was getting lost when going to Shadow Concealment. There's some wonky stuff happening. But if you can get those crits, it's really high damage. And yeah, and I like Shooty Reaper over. I know in previous campaigns we played a little bit with the Rocket Reaper, and while rockets are super strong, I think just being able to shoot all the time is fairly solid. Alright, moving on. Overwatch Ranger. So, good old Ranger. There are a few changes between the Mod Jam Ranger and the basic Longbow of the Chosen Ranger. I probably complained about losing on my covering fire, but you know, it's not killing the class in any way, right? Would have liked to have it. Like non-shell class is kind of a dead pick here. Certainly having lock and load unlocks a whole lot of killing potential and really keeps the kill zone going and makes sure you always have the free shot for rapid reaction. So that's certainly a really strong XCOM role pick, but I don't think you need it in order to build an Overwatch Ranger. We could have done normal shooting Ranger, we could have done, well, not a 40 mobility, you could not have done a sort of Ranger, but yeah. It's solid, it's working. I think Killzone actually worked better than in previous campaigns where we had some weird situations where Killzone wouldn't trigger, and I think in this campaign so far it was actually fairly reliable. Moving on. Saboteur. I feel like I haven't had our Saboteur animation in a while in this campaign. Fairly strong class. I really like this whole mechanic with the quick feed, reconceal, quick feed, you know, taking shots from concealment, getting the Shadowborn bonus, having to play around a little bit with your positioning because for Fate you need high cover and need to make sure you're not flanked and all of that, while also scouting really effectively. And I especially like the fact that they use the Vector Rifle, so that the Reaper is not the only class using that weapon. So when you buy upgraded Vector Rifles, they're not just for a single soldier, but multiple people in the barracks can use them. So it felt a little bit too strong for scouting, because you have various perception radius reductions, right, of enemies' detection radius. Like Shadowborn reduces their detection radius. Then I think maybe it's really just Shadowborn, but it's 33%. That's such a huge reduction. Then the fact that we have the Advent armors, which I know there's some discussion going on right now about nerfing those. But we basically had 1 or 2 tiles detection radius against most enemies, and that made scouting maybe a little bit too easy. I don't know. I have not played around at all, I think, with the... I think this is more kind of a sniper focus with squad side here. I did try to play around, I think it was in the streamed campaign, with the grenade focus Saboteur, and it was not working at all. The whole grenade trap is kind of a little bit weird at the moment. It has super limited range. It's not reliable in going off. It makes sound when deploying the trap, so you put enemies on yellow alert, even if you're still fully concealed. It just has issues, so you know, this might as well not be there. So that, I think in one of the stream campaigns we were trying out the grenade Saboteur, and then a Saboteur patch came, and I'm like, oh, thankfully I got to respec now. Oh, now I'm picking this row again because it's just so much more reliable. Fun class to play. Absolutely one of my favorite additions with the with Petrox classes. Stormtrooper. I think I mentioned it in one of the last videos. I regret taking Total Combat. I like having my close encounters to be actually useful against enemies that I can't flank. I guess as much as 1 mobility and 5 aim sounds like a sweet deal, giving up your action economy giving up the ability to shoot and scoot, shoot and rapid fire is just so bad that I will always go probably complete middle row most of the time. Like which to me, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the class. Again, we have the bonus of somebody using a bullpup, so it's the weapon for the skirmisher, so it's not just used by a single class, but another class using it, which I think is a great approach. But there's the whole thing where, to me personally, anything but the middle row is kind of questionable. Like, I know some people really like doing something with fastball and total combat, but I think you're giving up so much in firing potential to get a little bit grenade power, which effectively is still going to be worse than any Grenadier's grenade. Which I think is more like an XCOM problem. Your soldiers are going to be more effective if they specialize in one task, rather than trying to do multiple tasks but weaker. So I prefer this row. I don't think I've even looked at the stuff down here. Like, Marauder is probably still a solid choice in some situations. That I can see viable, maybe also depending on what you get in the XCOM row. And there's certainly some interesting choices back here, like First Strike versus Thousands to Go is definitely something worth looking into. And I can, like, we don't use run and gun often, so maybe Formidable has a choice, but other than that, I wish I had taken Close Encounters, just saying. So, the Watchdog. Did I ever mention how much I like Quick 8 as an ability? I wish, you know, if there's ever, you know, Kuruka, if you're listening, if you're ever reworking the specialist of Mod Jam, and maybe jam in Quick 8 somewhere there, because that's such a nice ability with especially something like a specialist who's always, if they use their support abilities, it always feels like they're lagging behind. They already kind of need to be in the front to hack the objective later on, if it's a hacking objective. And then you're kind of wanting to do an aid protocol and you're wanting to take a shot, but oh, then you didn't move again. So Quick 8 kind of fixes that in a nice way, giving you the action back from your Gremlin abilities. So that's super nice. Other than that, let me actually just yeah, you got 14 kills. I know that I didn't really invest in your combat abilities, but the whole thing of you start off with Overwatch, and you start off, don't you also start off with Focused, where your first Overwatch shot always hits? I seem to remember something like that, and it's just not showing here. I'm going crazy now. I might be going crazy. Anyway, like, for me, this is a nice Gremlin support class, you know. I did appreciate Rescue Protocol a lot. As I said, Quick 8 is fantastic. And because of the way we built the squad, and having a bunch of Overwatchers in the squad, being able to give somebody else Overwatch with the aid protocol here. Oh yeah, there. Aggressive Fire is the focus one that gives guaranteed Overwatch shot hits. Threat assessment, there it is. That kind of worked out. I just can't see. I can't see this whole pistol Overwatch build really working. Rapid reaction, because pistols are just super weak. But maybe it's a matter of having to play it once. But again, the downside of the Highlander campaign here, I guess, was I needed officer classes. and I only have a limited amount, so anybody who has a viable officer build was kind of shoehorned into the officer role. If I had enough other officers and enough other hackers, then maybe going for an Overwatch pistol build and seeing if that works might have been a viable option. But yeah, certainly an interesting class that I can see myself using again. There's certainly some more things to play around with. Oh boy, where do I even start? The Warden is certainly the carry of the last few missions. There's some insane amount that we can do with the psi armor, the extra actions on that, the fact that you have insight, which is basically like Marauder, standard shots on a turn ending. So the more actions you have, the more shots you can take. Teleporting everywhere around the map with recharge, resetting the cooldown on teleports, plus all the other tools in the box. I mean, we did play around a little bit with relocate, but I can also see adrenaline, like the amount of kills you got. Let me actually see. It's only 87, which doesn't seem like a lot, but maybe you were a little bit of a late bloomer, I want to say here. But certainly works really nicely. What my main issue with the Warden right now is that it feels like there's a lot of must-have picks. In the current stream campaign, I was playing around with not picking part and strike, unwavering concentration and stasis shell here, and it just feels like, oh, I really wish I had picked recharge, and unwavering concentration is not doing much for me. Which is so weird. Like, there's so many good abilities. Like, Sixth Sense is immunity to multi-target area attacks. Seems really strong, but so is Premonition. Like, Lightning Reflexes is a must-have pick in vanilla assaults, but nah, it's like probably second or third choice only in this row. Combatives, you know? You want to have people with combatives, but recharge? Considering you do have something like Premonition that benefits from recharge, relocation, spatial surfer, and the fact that Wardens are guaranteed a psionic class, so recharge will affect all their psionic abilities at the same time. It's just a lot of things. Like this is doing a lot of work for this class. But yeah, fun to play around with, and I think there's I feel like the class has a higher, I want to say, skill ceiling because of all the tools that you have. Seeing what you can do with those tools, seeing where you can teleport to, where you can take advantage of flanks, and how you use the different cooldowns effectively. There's some depth to the decision making here. Yeah. Right, coming to our Sapper, Commander Emily here. Now, before I comment on the Sapper itself, I have to add a few comments to the proficiency classes, which you can always see when they have this little pips here. I really like the idea of the proficiency classes, the unlocking or improving your base abilities once you reach a certain rank. My main issue at the moment is, in a campaign like this, the proficiency classes feel stronger than their corresponding counterpart. So a Sapper is just flat out stronger than a Grenadier. Attack Specialist is just way better than a Specialist. The Marine is going to be better than the Ranger, etc., etc. Which doesn't really... I don't like that. Now, I could see a campaign where you play vanilla Long War of the Chosen, remove the base classes, and just only play with proficiency classes, right? So that you don't have these competing classes where one is just stronger, but rather you just play with a different class setup in general. And then it's fine. You might, since all classes are a little bit stronger, you might want to adjust something else. But coming back to the Sapper, for what they're supposed to do, as in thrown grenades, they do that excellently well. And thanks to full kit and the base proficiency perk here, they have an awful lot of grenades at their disposal, and they deploy them fairly effectively. I think the one thing I'm just missing here is no tandem warheads for the removal of the AoE fall-off, which I think is just not just a really strong pick in terms of talents, but also a really good quality of light thing, because you don't only have to pixel hunt to get exactly the center of the explosion on the important enemy, but you just, you know, as long as they're in the radius, it's fine. Now there is, it's still a matter of not having played around with them enough to see how good or how not so good the support build is, and also if there's a viable shooty build. He isn't, because they're so good at throwing grenades. Have them throw grenades instead of trying to shoot. Bonus points for, you know, I think they are also using, no, they can use shotguns, but they can also use the bullpups, so you get another use out of those. But yeah, overall, lots of grenade, lots of explodey power. Oh, and one last thing when we're talking about proficiency classes, I really hope that we get the soldier AP bugs fixed, because that's kind of, it's not the end of the world. You can just manually use the console to give you the AP, but I wish, you know, it was, you didn't have to. Oh boy, we come into our technician. Let's just put the finger where the wound is. I am not a fan. I am not a fan of the bullet arts, if it is frost bullet or whatever the other bullets are for the other classes. Like, all the bullet art classes are kind of I don't see the appeal of the bullet arts. It's like kind of weird. You have this activated ability which has a kind of long cooldown, so you use it once, maybe twice on a regular covert action, but then it also has not just a long cooldown, but it also has only 4 charges, so on untimed missions you might run out of charges, which would make the, like, especially if you focus your perks into this and then you run out of charges, and, you know, I guess I just regular attack now. Feels kind of weird. Then the whole idea of, hey, eventually I use Frost Protocol and then have whatever it is where you attack twice. Yeah, Frost Bullet Artist, strike the target twice, then I apply 3 stacks of chill, right, which should freeze the enemy, and then that never worked, because this only applies the frost effect once, or whatever it was. It was very frustrating to use. Now, I'm not sure if something else you can do here with some other specs. Maybe go for the kind of sniper role here. Maybe go for the hacking role, but the focus on the bullet arts just didn't sit right for me. It didn't feel like it was doing its job. Like, for a shooter, it wasn't dishing out enough damage or being able to engage enough targets a turn. And the frost effect is just not, it's just not an effective debuff against enemies. Like, if you can freeze them, great, you take them out of fight, but enemies that have their mobility a little bit reduced, most enemies don't care. So yeah, there are a lot of things coming together here. Like, we had also kind of low mobility for the majority of the campaign. I think this is... Do you have a speed PCS? Yeah, this is with a speed PCS. We're sitting at 13. So, kind of low mobility, low hack, decent aim. And then we were really trying to focus on bullets arts, and it just wasn't doing enough. So, yeah, not a fan of the technician. Not a class that I would, like, you know, if I'm training as a soldier in the GTS, not a class I would pick there. And one last comment. Probably only resmarched the sergeant because he was bonded to our ranger, who, you know, I wanted to have on a lot of missions, and so he got to tag along. That's really... It was never, oh, I want to bring the technician. It was rather always I want to bring the ranger. Might as well drag his bondmate with him. So, yeah, sorry, not my thing. Alright, Grenadier. Fires grenades. Grenades go boom, enemies die. Fantastic. As I said, felt a little bit weaker because Sapper was doing the same job, just a little bit better with more grenades, but it was still doing a solid job. I remember that very chaotic supply rate, where also Untouchable saved us a bunch of times. Yeah, just works, just solid, all around. Like to see it. Not much else to say. I mean, the only thing negative to say about a Grenadier right now is that I see little reason to ever stray away from this kind of spec. Unless you want to build a completely different Grenadier, then you might go with some supporty stuff, right? With blue screen and sting and stuff. But for your offensive Grenadier, that's kind of the thing. There's an argument to be made: if you have reliably always someone with airdrop around, then maybe you don't need fuel kit and you can pick up heavy hitter. Moving on. Oh boy, our assault. I don't know why I took lightning reflexes. I should have taken close encounters. Like, this big regrets here. I almost want to rewatch the whatever episode it was where I took lightning reflexes, but always close encounters. Like, for the mod jam assault, I think bring them on, and then maybe not even trench gun, maybe close and personal for more reliable crit chance. And then top row lethal is just such a solid damage dealer, fun to play with. And the fact that you have dedication kind of means you kind of don't need lightning reflexes. There is a little bit of lightning reflex lag in the game, and it's such an auto pick in base Longbow of the Chosen that you're kind of tempted by it. But I think it's more in basic Longbow of the Chosen, lightning reflexes is against what? Trench gun? No, not trench gun. Slugshot and electroshock, and so that's not really strong of competition. So that made it its auto pick, but it's not a my squad needs lightning reflexes. You have other ways to deal with Overwatch. So definitely should have been a pick here. Moving on. The Roboticist. So part of me feels like you also got the high rank because you were dragged along with the Warden for bond reasons, and that's why you got a bunch of missions in. Chaining Jolt was certainly disappointing, for sure. I don't think we got too much value out of Slugshot. Now, I did mention I really enjoyed having Combat Protocol, because as much as people like to shit on Combat Protocol on the vanilla specialist, having it for free as your squaddy ability is actually doing, even late game still, respectable damage to mechanical enemies. For a guaranteed hit at squad side range, that you can use with a single action after a move, that's just really good. I think maybe what held you back was not being an officer. We could have done, as an officer, just really started to focus on support abilities and not trying to deal damage, because you rarely got to deal damage, let's be honest. Like the whole just doing hacky stuff might have been a better option. Although for a support role, I think there's a lot of conflicting choices here. Airdrop and stealth being in the same row, supercharge and Trojan being in the same row kinda limits you a little bit. Like unlike the technician, where I say, yeah, that's not a class that I'm interested in, I feel like the Roboticist is a class I want to play more with. I want to try out the other roles, see if you can make a, you know, shotgun finesse, combat focused, trench gun, running gun, assaulty kind of Roboticist work. If you can make a pure hacker officer, maybe even a phantom who just sits in stealth and uses hacking and support abilities the whole time. If you can kind of make that work. Probably also then a little bit guided by whatever choices you get in the XCOM role. Yeah, it's probably never again going to be chaining Jolt. Tech Specialist. So, I mentioned it before. It just feels stronger than the baseline Specialist, and, you know, being able to use all your hacking abilities, including Combat Protocol, from concealment without breaking concealment, feels super strong. So you have a fantastic officer candidate who can hack and support with something like Combat Protocol and scout at the same time, because they retain concealment. Edged bonkers strong. Now, there are a few things that I probably would pick different. I don't know. Hacking skill is really hard to get, so getting 10 hacking skill from a talent really makes it a strong choice, even though airdrop would have been really nice as an officer, depending on who's in your squad who can actually benefit from it, right? I do like my rescue protocol, but yeah, certainly an effective class, with the whole caveats that I mentioned before in terms of proficiency classes. AP need to be fixed, and they just feel stronger than their base class counterparts. And maybe that's something for future of pure proficiency class run, and then we can actually also play around with maybe a shooty tech specialist, maybe a whatever this is tech specialist. I'm actually surprised looking at this that you didn't make it to Master Sergeant. I think there were some longer injuries that prevented that. Moving on, the Field Medic. Didn't see too much actions, so didn't get to Master Sergeant. Also because I did choose the Electroshock road, you didn't really get many kills, which means lack of kill XP, which means slower leveling. There's, in my opinion, always limited use for healing abilities, because, you know, if you, let's go, say you spec fully into healer, or additional revive charges, because all your people keep dying all the time, and you need more revives per mission, like what? And then you run 5 flawless missions, and all your choices do not matter for those missions. You didn't need them. You could have sent a squaddy who would have been just as effective. Which is why I kinda don't like healing options for perks in the game. Same thing with tanking, right? If you kill all the enemies whenever you engage a pod, you kill everybody. All your tanking abilities are just dead pigs that didn't do anything on the mission. So yeah, anyway, I think for an Explorer class, those are solid options here. And I think especially Adrenaline Rush as a limited running gun. It's a kind of a running gun limited to the arc thrower because it's not doing damage. That worked really well. So would have been nice to see that a little bit more in action. I just didn't get around to use you more. That's pretty much it. I think there's an Overwatch spec here, which with Sentinel, it reminds very much of a Overwatch specialist, but we didn't get to play around with it all that much. Applied Knowledge, I think, is a very interesting perk. I think I talked about this in a previous episode, where just having the autopsies matter more, and getting a big damage boost against autopsied enemies is an interesting mechanic. It's a very passive mechanic. It's not really actively doing anything, but it's kind of a passive reward kind of thing. Anyway, let me just get some water here. So here's an interesting thing. We have the Shredder, which is a bullet arts class, right? With acid bullet, which I really liked playing. And the thing is, what makes them pop is the fact that I actually kind of ignored that he has bullets arts, and I just played around with this baseline kit. So it was really for me a combination of Whirlwind, and early access to Whirlwind is super strong. And then later on Close Encounters, where it was really then a matter of move in with high baseline mobility, right? You move in, high baseline mobility plus shotgun finesse. Take shot of Close Encounters, then flash, a different target, and then Whirlwind back to safety. And that's just super solid performance. Like this is I think such a strong build that was really fun to play with. Again, a lot of choices, a lot of mobility options that you have, multi-attack options, Close Encounters, this kind of stuff. I don't think we got too much value out of Close Combat Specialist, if any. I would have to really think hard about, did that ever trigger? But at the same time, like, yeah, for the Master Sergeant perks, that would have been the same for all of them, right? Would Bladestorm have ever triggered? If we're just ignoring that we have bullet arts, blasting bullets also doesn't do much. Which is, the Master Sergeant role feels weird here. And I would, if somebody actually paid attention to Cloud since he got his Master Sergeant promotion, did we ever get value out of CCS? I want to go out here and say, no, it didn't trigger a single time so far. Which doesn't mean it was a bad pick. It could also mean that I just didn't play with that in mind. The Hunter. So I'm not going to say too much about the Hunter because the class received a rework, and I don't think we respect the Hunter after the rework. But it's generally originally a class that I wasn't using a lot. Then they got the initial rework where they got running on empty, and the whole running on empty with that single shot sniper rifle that does an enormous amount of crit damage Plus you have crit damage boosters like Shadowborn, like Impulse. It's a really fun playstyle, I think. Towing that line with just barely outside of vision of the enemy, so you get the Shadowborn bonus, but not too far away, so you don't get snapshot penalties. I think plays fairly interestingly. The damage numbers were a little bit too high, so I think you can no longer, in the current version of the Hunter, you can no longer get Butcher at the same time of running on empty. I think running on empty moves to Gunnery Sergeant row, so you get it later and you can't get the big damage boost, but they're still performing really well, and I like the playstyle. Specialist. So, probably a class that could use with a few buffs, I think, in the Mod Jam environment. They already felt weaker in normal campaigns than a Dragoon when it comes to a hacker officer kind of class. And in this campaign specifically, then they also kind of fell behind in class power compared to like a tech specialist. Or even the pistol hacky guy. No, class names. That being said, though, you are a commander. You are a psionic, so you certainly saw some action and did a very good job in leading the squad, right? So this is still a viable and strong build with Trojan, with airdrop, and all these other perks. Like, you're kind of missing a little bit what other officer classes then have in terms of, for example, stealth protocol or being able to yourself remain concealed. So you have basically no kind of stealth aspects here. So I feel like the specialist is currently missing their I want to say unique selling point. Like something that only they have that the other classes don't have. And especially with the hijacker now also coming in on the whole hacking front, I think and I hope that the specialist gets some bonus treatment. As I said, quick aid would be a fantastic option to just give them that. I would even say give the specialist quick aid on Squaddy, and suddenly you have a very interesting class that also helps. Would help the Overwatch specialist. Yeah, I gotta ping Illogical after this. Anyway, the Geneva. Now, leaving aside the whole bug with the mobility and the grenade perks, certainly an interesting class concept. Throwing all the war crimes out there that you can. I think, what was it? Light ordnance is an interesting concept, reducing grenade damage but increasing grenade capacity. So really kind of forcing you into the status effect grenades. That being said, most of the time we kind of use the fire grenades because they disable enemies. That really what it boils down to. I'm not sure what else to say. Like, certainly, I like taking you on missions. I'm warming up to the camp thrower. Like, I know I had a rough time with the Arsonist in the past, but I'm starting to like it a little bit more. We haven't explored at all the rocket tree. But I feel like if you're going for the rockets, then we might as well just bring a heavy. And this is the campflower tree, which, you know, might as well bring an Arsonist. But yeah, I'll certainly a class I want to use again in the future. The Juggernaut. I think this was the first campaign where I tried out the Flamethrower Juggernaut, and I was kind of floored by how effective they were. Like in the past, I always looked at it, I tried it a little bit with Incinerator at Corporal, that feels really strong, and I couldn't make it work. But this time around it worked, and it worked really, really well. Especially also actively looking for takedown opportunities or using the rest of a squad to set up a takedown opportunity to then utilize the high mobility repositioning aspect to then flamethrower from the other side of the battlefield. Gives a lot of flexibility. That being said, I've done in previous campaign rocket juggernauts, and they're just super solid. I've not played around with the cannon, with the shooty juggernaut, but just on paper, they also seem really strong, right? With guaranteed shredder, saturation fire, double tap. They're probably just as good as a gunner, with having the additional mobility from takedown. So, certainly a fun class to play around with. Like I like everything about the Juggernaut right now. I think they're in a solid place. Sure, takedown action economy might be a little bit strong, and maybe takedown needs a nerf. Never misses, does not end your turn. Maybe something like can only be used on unarmored enemies, so you cannot just take down any drone that lost 1 HP. I don't know. But Juggernaut, solid, fun, good, strong. The Bounty Hunter. Plus points for Vector Rifle and even Reaper Armor, you know, making the whole equipment more versatile. So in this campaign, we tried the Sniper Bounty Hunter. I had 2 other YouTube campaigns with this Highlander setup, and one I tried the pistol builds, which felt super strong, like stronger than this in terms of target deletion, and kind of silly, but great animations here for Night Dive. And then in another campaign we tried the Sticky Bomb explosives build, which felt you know, when it's poppin', it was poppin', but it quickly ran out of steam and it felt convoluted to use. The sniper build seems just really strong. Like my main problem with the Bounty Hunter is that it has this unique scaling due to Dead of Night, where even crit chance above 100% gives you more damage. So you technically have an open damage ceiling, an unlimited damage ceiling, and that can feel a little bit broken. To the point where I think that is too strong. Now, we have Dead of Night on the Shinobi now, but it's not a baseline perk they get at Squaddy. It's a Gunnery Sergeant perk with other good perks in the same row. I think that is probably the main factor, that this is here from the start. This is the class identity, right? So it seems a little bit too good, and at the same time then also, I almost want to say, too easy to use. I think I mentioned the term skill ceiling before on the Warden, where I think they have a really high skill ceiling, a lot of depth in the decision making, and I think it's the opposite here, where there's the skill floor for the Bounty Hunter is super low, as in you cannot go wrong with this class, you know? It doesn't feel rewarding just taking sniper shots with 180% chance to crit that just do minimum damage is enough to kill any enemy. Anyway, moving on. The infantry. you got a little bit stuck there, not leveling up, but I think the infantry is one of the classes where I think the multi-classing, as in shooting and healing, actually kind of works. Like, this is a jack of all trades, right? So you, at least in this spec, which I like for the infantry, with light 'em up, center mass, cyclic fire for shooting, you get paramedic and field surgeon for healing, and you pick up quick slap and chain lightning for stunning, and it still feels effective enough. My only problem with the class right now is that whenever I tried something else than this build, it felt weak, or it didn't feel impactful enough. So I'm always falling back to this one slightly weird, but kind of working build. At least for me, I can make it work. Again, referring to the initial disclaimer, this is my opinion on the class, my experiences. This is not a guide, and this does not have to match with whatever you're doing. Yeah, I mean, it's before I move on, maybe the one problem with the infantry is there's probably never a situation where I set up a squad for a mission and I say, oh, I want to bring an infantry. It's more of a, yeah, good, I have like 2 more slots to fill, I guess we can bring an infantry. Like, yeah, it doesn't hurt the squad, but it's also not, oh, we need our infantry to come back from sickbay, otherwise I can't run this mission. That's probably never really a consideration. Like, for example, the Sharpshooter. The Sharpshooter does Sharpshooter things, and it does that fairly effectively. That's the base Longbow of the Chosen spec. That is my Mod Jam Plus spec. That now, there was a change recently in the Mod Jam Sharpshooter where Long Watch was removed, and instead you have lead the target every single turn. No more cooldown on lead the target here, a new perk. So that's the one change that would happen if I were to respec you. But at the moment, it's Sharpshooter that works. Hollow Targeter, full Hollow Targeter row also works, but with only a single Sharpshooter in the whole barracks, I needed some sniping support. And yeah, maybe one day we get a snapshot build that actually makes sense, but until then I'd rather play a hunter. Anyway, moving on. Oh boy, the knight. You know, I can't complain about the effectiveness of the knight. Like, especially late game, once we had coup de grace unlocked, right? Which, to be fair, Gunnery Sergeant is kind of a late unlock, but once we got there and we did the whole thing, Knight's Charge with concussive blow to disorient or rather stun the enemy, unlocking the coup de grace bonus damage, and just you whack them, and with Lightning Fang we could whack them multiple times. That was really solid damage. But that's really, that felt like that's all there is to the class, right? You have this whole tree to use the same 2 buttons, Knight's Charge, Crusader Strike, the whole campaign. Like, the only choice you make is which target you attack. There's a little bit of play that you can do with Guard, but Guard feels like a defensive ability, and the way we played it, yeah, Shield Trauma, also it just felt like an offensive class, and while it is effective at being offensive, it felt a little bit one-dimensional. It's probably was my complaint when I was playing with the alien classes, and playing with the Berserker there. Berserker is like a click on target delete class, which works, and they run in, they kill the target, fantastic. But that's all you do. Like every turn you just, okay, and now kill this one. And very little depth in decision making, I want to say. Now, again, this is, I think, the only campaign in which we actually got a knight to a respectable level. There is some sort of tank tree here, but I mentioned before that I'm not a big fan of tanking. There's something here with rockets, which I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. Like, I don't know where this set of talents is going. So in terms of pure melee damage, it's pretty straightforward. But again, so kind of one-dimensional. Moving on, Agent. Also fairly recently got a rework with the whole license to kill and actually making a kind of it possible to do a sniper agent. Agent is actually one of my favorite classes to play in the Mod Jam environment, which makes it so much weirder that you never got to Master Sergeant. I think it was a combination of not putting you actually as part of any squad and having a bondmate of a class I didn't enjoy at all, but we get to that later. That left you a little bit behind. So I think there's ways to play. Like, I'm trying around with a sniper agent, and I think it can work. The stabby agent works. I think going for the double tap shotgun agent can also work if you have the right mobility. There's certainly several options available on how you want to play your agent. A lot of it's focused on run and slice and the various ways that you can reset the cooldown on that. And I've played with builds that go for the early disarming strike, so you have an early reset. Here we go for lacerate, skipping over combatants, but having a reset available. And I've also played in the past with agent builds that only get Shadow Meld at the very end, struggle a little bit in the mid game until they get there, but they all work in my opinion. So yeah, so looking forward actually to playing that sniper agent a little bit more to see how that works. But yeah, agent is a fun class to use. That's all I have to say here. Yeah, which brings me to the Quartermaster, who was that bondmate for our agent. On paper, I liked that idea. You have one fixed class, you get more AP, and then you have a bunch of randomly generated rows where you can like pick and choose your thing. It's a little bit like, I think this RPGO is working. I don't know exactly how that is working, but you have, I think, more options to build your class. Unfortunately, the randomness of the selection also means we kind of got shafted here, and I was complaining a lot about nothing really being there that really makes me go, oh yeah, this is the build this character is going for. And so it kind of felt off. It's like, yeah, sure, you start with rapid deployment and you get total combat, so you can throw grenades either without an action or without ending your turn. But what are you gonna throw? You know, a basic smoke grenade? That's not, like... Smoker is a perk. Like, you have a weak XCOM row on a soldier and you have 10 spare AP anyway, and you're like, I might as well pick up Smoker. But if your class build is centered around spending AP, you're not gonna spend 10 AP for Smoker. Or for Flashbang. Like, I think the whole XCOM row-ish perks needs to be approached differently if this is your main currency basically to make the class work. If having a fairly weak main talent row, then you need to have stronger picks here. Basically stuff you would normally put in the 20 AP row should then be in the 10 AP. Like shift everything down. Don't even give me any of this shit. Forget about this and shift everything down. Like stuff you normally pay 40 for, put in the 30 rows and put like ridiculous abilities in the 40. I don't know. I think it's really hard to balance that, but it felt like the class felt like a lottery, and you lost the moment you saw your talent tree, and you're like, oh, we only got mediocre stuff. And I'm not sure if that's like, I mean, that's of course the uniqueness of this campaign. One soldier per class. You roll the class once, you see it, it's like, oh, crap. In a normal campaign, you might be like, no, alright, but my other Quartermaster got a really nice build. So you focus on that one now. Or you're just not building Quartermasters, I guess. Anyway, Heavy. Heavy shoots rockets. Rockets go boom. Heavy is happy. Not much to say. Apparently you can build a shooty Heavy, but you know, then you don't have rockets that go boom, and Heavy is not so happy. There's something to be said about Siren rockets and their current implementation and the way enemies behave when they're in a poison cloud. But that's a whole can of worms that I'm not gonna open here right now. So, yeah, Heavy, shoot more rockets. Oh, Skirmisher. Skirmisher things. Yeah, okay, Skirmisher. Cool. Fantastic. Skirmisher is probably my favorite of the hero classes, and I just like the Skirmisher gameplay. I guess at the moment my only complaint is that I would probably like, this is for me all auto picks. Sometimes lock and load, sometimes I just don't pick anything in both rows here. Depends a little bit on XCOM, but I think a lot of the other choices are kind of questionable at best. Yeah, there was, I think, one of the stream campaigns we actually had recharge in the XCOM row, you know, reducing cooldown on kill. And I'm like, oh, we want to have cooldown abilities, so we're gonna take Justice and Rev, and it was awful. It was so terrible. I still think this is, I don't know. I remember during Long War development, I was always like, put Justice and Rev. Like, these are bad abilities. Just put them in the squaddy row. Like, I would even say having them with those abilities makes the class weaker, so just put them in the XCOM row. It's a trap having those on your quick bar. Couldn't quite convince people. Anyway, coming to the Electrician. Another of those bullet arts classes where I'm like a little bit torn between bullet arts feel bad, but actually this one bullet art feels somewhat effective, but I think it's not so much the bullet art, but it's more like the blue screen shockwave. Like, this suddenly feels impactful. Double damage to robotic foes. We one-shot super heavy mechs, we took half the health of a sectopod. It's just kinda, you know, this is a mechanical unit killer, and it's doing the work. Certainly having thousands to go also helped to really make this shine. Now, I don't think I would ever go for a suppression build. I did in the past go for a, like, only really just picking up blue screen shockwave, and then other than that going for like quick zap, arc lance, cascading arc lance kind of thing. But I think this also works, so there's at least some build variety that I can see working here. But yeah, as far as bullets as classes go, certainly on the top end of classes that I actually liked to play with. I think we got her very late, so never reached Master Sergeant. One of our only mechs, the mech protector. I don't even remember which class you originally were. But yeah, so there was some jankiness with sacrifice, and some people have done some testing about how it works, and you need to make sure that you actually only select a tile within your blue move range, even though the game allows you to select a different tile. But even then, on the Run HQ assault, back then, where we used sacrifice, I want to say people would have been the radius and it didn't trigger properly, so it's kind of... I don't like abilities that are janky, as in, if you use it exactly this way, it works, and it's like, yeah, then I'd rather not use it at all if I have to pay that much attention to it. But it's just me. Other than that, it's okay. You know, it's a little bit, it has a shield. It's kind of supposed to be a tanky mech class, and I don't see much use for tanking 99% of the time. But I think the 2 times or whatever that we used sacrifice, it kind of helped-ish. I really like relocation servers. I think other than that, it takes a long time to come online here with Protect and Serve. I think it's like, it's not a weak class, but also not a, we need a mech protector for this squad. It was often more of a, okay, your buddy is going, you can come along. Alright, moving on. Recon. Shooty Recon in this case. It certainly worked. I think Recon is in a good place. There's a complete kind of stay in stealth for the whole mission and holo target things. As if you were a holo bot sharpshooter, but you actually carry an SMG, so you're harder to detect. So that works. I think the Shooty Recon is fairly effective, especially if you have a strong perk here in the XCOM role that you can pick up, and we certainly had one here with Hunter's Instinct. So yeah, I don't think I've ever tried to utilize the center role more. Fate seems like a really weak pick for a Master Sergeant role, though. Just gotta say that. Yeah, I don't know. Recon is a nice class. It's not, I don't know, earth smashing amazing, but I'm never disappointed about having to bring a Recon along. Alright, moving on. Oh boy, it's almost already over an hour, and yeah, we're still getting at least out of the Master Sergeants now. Our Buccaneer, one of the latest additions to the team. Still a fairly new class. Still haven't played around with all the specs yet. I like the Buccaneer a lot. You certainly had some issues with the way dogpile works, or doesn't work sometimes. There's certainly some translation issues, or rather localization issues, where the tooltip isn't updated. It says can trigger once per target per turn. No, it's just once per turn. If you have multiple targets, only on the first target it will trigger. It will not trigger on subsequent targets. I think this is probably the only, kind of weird role where I've never played without dogpile, because I don't think the other choices are really all that great. But we've played around on the stream campaigns With Burial Blade Buccaneer, we played around with Double or Nothing. Don't think we've done anything with Focus. Lightning Slash just really good. I think Keen Edge can work, Concentration can work, Combatives can work. I think we've played around. Yeah, we have Run and Slice Buccaneer on stream. With Whip It is a strong perk. So there's two good choices here in this row. Untouchable is nice. Fearsome can be nice when it works. I don't see a case for out. So certainly a lot of build variety, and I think the class is still too young to say, oh, this is the default build you will always go to on a Buccaneer. And I think there's a lot of incentive based in the XCOM row to vary it up, right? Run and Slice is great, but if you don't have an ability to reset its cooldown, it's kind of crummy. So hey, but we have Disarming Strike here, so suddenly we have a cooldown reset for Run and Slice. Just gotta use it. Because if you use a cooldown reset, then suddenly you're no longer using a sort of shotgun. So hey, maybe then it's not worth picking up Double or Nothing. There's a lot of interesting choices, I think. Buccaneer is certainly a fun class that I like to play around with, and I want to play around with more. Spark. I think this is kind of my meta Spark build that I'll probably always choose now. Which is kind of sad because Rainmaker and our Shell Shock Protocol, as it's called here, is a lot of fun, but I think Shredder is more important. This is Bombard is great cover destruction. Master Blaster is more cover destruction. Repositioning stuff. I guess Overclock versus Traverse is at least an interesting choice still. And there's something to be said about adaptive aim over collateral damage, especially since the targeting for collateral damage is made so awful. But yeah, I don't think I would ever build Spark a different way, which is kind of sad because there's some fun melee talents here, but it's probably not the reason why I would bring a Spark on a mission. Now, if you have a more varied campaign where you have maybe 5-6 Sparks, I can certainly see some room for playing around with some other builds. But since I also haven't played with other builds yet, I'm not gonna comment on mine too much. Faceless. Barely saw you in action. So maybe one thing to note here, while this campaign here was running, and it was running for, what, the last 5 months, we also had a streamed campaign where I was almost exclusively using playable aliens. And I really didn't enjoy that campaign at all. And yeah, that's my experience from the Faceless there is going to bleed over here as an moving on. Templar. I don't think much has changed on the Templar recently, so there's not much new to say here. I know some people like their tank Templar. I don't. I do like my invert, and I think we also played around with invert a little bit. I think that most recent supply raid comes to mind, where we inverted an enemy to group up all the enemies for some nice grenading and stuff. I really like playing around with invert, finding new clever ways to use it. So that's like one of the, I think, most rewarding abilities if you can use it in an effective way. And other than that, yeah, just call it Templar damage. And I think Thousands to Go really got, you know, on my priority list of what do I like to see in the Templar XCOM row. This probably took position 1 just from this campaign, where, you know, if I see that again in the future on my Templar, I'm gonna be super happy. I'm gonna spend early AP to get that that really helped. Like the way you could, on the first encounter with superior aptitude, gaining additional focus points, like the first enemy you see, you attack, you kill, you attack the second enemy, bam, you're at 4 focus after 1 turn. That's just super nice, and having high focus levels really helps you to then steamroll the future encounters with your Templar. Templar's great, Templar's fun. Marine. Standard proficiency class disclaimer. Feels very like, you know, you have your... This is basically a shooty ranger. Without him... No. You also have implacable. I'm not even sure what's missing here. That you have weapon sword, but not whatever a ranger has. But you also have Shredder. You can also be built as an Overwatch ranger, right? But with... Like this is just... This you know, this kind of encapsulates the whole... The proficiency classes are better versions than the base classes, right? So the base ranger gets a rapid reaction, which can shoot 3 times, but if you miss a shot, you lose the remaining shots. Or the other Overwatch ability is Sentinel, which you have on a specialist, which is just 2 shots. Proficiency Marine gets a Sentinel version, which is 3 shots, so like rapid reaction, but without the downside of rapid reaction. Oh, and he gets it at Tech Sergeant as opposed to rapid reaction at Gunnery Sergeant. So it, you know, it feels a little bit unfair to have this much more power. But again, if we play a campaign only for proficiency classes, I can see a pure shooty Marine, I can see an Overwatch Marine. And I can even, like, this class actually can make suppression work. We've played with that in a previous campaign. You can actually have a really strong suppression ability here, where you basically can have area suppression that also at the same time is then a kill zone. So fun to play around. Right, bringing us to the gunner. Now, I do like my kill zones, but I think it should be on... I kind of, in a way, regret that build where we have unload, we're not going to take cyclic fire. I kind of wish I would have said, yeah, whatever. Unload is nice, but I'm just going to go with standard build. Pick up cyclic fire, pick up rapid fire, forget the whole Overwatch shenanigans. And just play a solid good old gunner. Instead of trying to make something work here. I forgot you even had Sentinel. Yeah. I mean, it still worked, right? Unload as a replacement for cyclic fire was kind of there, but due to its long cooldown, it wasn't always there. And especially for the levels when he was tech on Gunnery Sergeant, where we didn't have Traverse yet, it felt really weak not having any sort of multi-shot attacks in the turns when unload was on cooldown. But yeah, I mean, try something new every few times to just see if it works. I don't think it worked all that well. Alright, Arsonist, you're squaddy. I'm not gonna command on you. Moving on. Survivalist. Kind of a sniper that is not as good as a sharpshooter, I want to say. You're kind of missing out on the ability to steady every turn. You don't have death from above. You get traverse fire, which allows you to steady every turn after shooting. but you need to wait until Master Sergeant. Well, Death from Birth is the Lance Corporal ability. And that kind of... if you can set up and prepare for the enemy, fantastic, good results. But in an ongoing firefight, you want to take a shot every single turn, it just falls off height, because you're missing that 25 aim and crit from a superior stock. Steady. I'm kind of trying to speed up a little bit. Combat Engineer, fun to play around with. Unfortunately, we didn't get quite to slam fire and to slam the fire here. With Killer Instinct, we had to go for kind of this... I wanted to go for this run and gun build. I have played around in the past with Combat Engineer officers, with smoke grenades, combat drugs, combat stimulants now also. That works. I've played with pure grenade combat engineers, and Devastation is a fantastic ability for additional grenade radius. So certainly 3 viable builds here on a combat engineer, at least. So fun class to play around. Not much else to say. Proficiency Assault. Well, yeah, again, kind of feels stronger than normal Assault, but we didn't quite get to Master Sergeant. Maybe the difference isn't as pronounced as in some of the other classes. I think this still feels very close to a regular Assault. Moving on. I'm trying to finish up a little bit here because, oh boy, 1.5 hours and I've been talking way too much. Mech Assault. Yeah, that build works. I've done that in the past, but not played around with him at all this campaign. Sorry about that. Demolitionist. Same thing. Oh look, Bullet Arts class. We're ignoring Bullet Arts and just playing you as a heavy Rocketeer. Gunslinger. I kind of regret that we didn't get a Gunslinger until so late. I think we had a Gunslinger in one of the streamed Highlander campaigns, and they were fairly effective there. It can be a fun class to play around with, if you get a chance. Scout. Scout, very close to the Hunter, I think, in terms of play. With the whole running on empty sniping. So, felt strong for that, but at the same time also strong Scout. Yeah, not much to say. I think you can play them as a regular Sharpshooter, you know, going into double tap. This kind of approach. And they have a pistol secondary, which you're probably just gonna ignore. Moving on. Castle. No idea. We didn't play around with you at all much. I think also in the stream campaigns I never got a castle above Sergeant level, so I can't really comment about the class at all, except I see Bullet Arts, I click Next Soldier. The Destroyer certainly had some potential, you know. Also makes for a solid rocket build. It seems like a very interesting combo, right? You have the Gauntlet for flamethrower stuff, you have a sniper rifle for sniper stuff, and you can equip a rocket launcher for rocket stuff. But I feel like most of the time you're probably better off with you want a flamethrower person, bring a technical or Juggernaut. If you want a rocket person, bring a heavy or Juggernaut. And if you want a sniper person, bring a Sharpshooter. Or a Naja. As much as I dislike the playable aliens, Naja felt super effective. And was just, you know, gets traverse fire early. Like Lance Corporal. Just like you would get Death from Above. So you can always shoot steady, Plus you have parkour to actually easily get to high ground. That was just a good, solid, reliable sniper. Now, I'm not sure how much viable other challenge choices there are. And I don't think there's too much I would do different. Maybe again, AMF versus Serpentine. And we took AMF because we have double tap. Alright, our Dragoon. I mentioned before, in terms of hacky officer class, Dragoon out edges, I think, the Specialist a bit. We did try the whole Cannon Dragoon here because we had Shadow Strike and I wanted to Shadow Strike Blinding Fire. And I think over the course of the campaign we even got like 3 really good ones off. Is that enough to justify this talent choice? Questionable. Especially since, you know, we lose the scouting role, we lose the detection range, we lose the mobility. But it was certainly fun. But I think they might be at the moment a little bit too shoehorned into, you know, blinding, phantom, bottom row, then either full override or supercharge. And then just sit in concealment and phantom concealment all day long and use your officer abilities and do some hacking. Alright, this is the Proficiency Marksman. Didn't see some action. So I'm just gonna say, same thing as with the other Proficiency classes. Feels stronger than a Sharpshooter. Higher damage ceiling. Like especially precision shot here is like a precision shot and Deadeye mixed into ones with all the advantages and none of the disadvantages. Executioner, again, a bullet arts class where we mostly ignore the bullet arts, didn't get to play around with them too much. Being very, very, very reliant on having high soldier mobility. Mutant Harrier, awful. Hijacker, great new class. Looking forward to playing around with him more. I don't know if that shooty hijacker is actually going to work, but I've done a few in the streamed campaigns now. You know, support hijackers with perfect plan, resupply, rescue, airdrop, sticky, stealth, and then scouting report, and that's just a fantastic support hacking officer spec that just works. Bishop, kind of unique class that I kind of want to play around with more. I think it's too little experience for me now to comment on it. There's some, you know, jankiness in terms of getting the class to start at the start of a mission, because you need focus to then roll into more focus, and that takes a while to get going. But from the little I've played with higher ranking bishops, once it gets going, it's really fun to use. And having a bold focused approach is certainly an interesting class approach. And just like that, we're already at the end. We're back at the Titan. We're through the whole barracks. That was 1.5 hours of me talking about classes. I hope that gave you one insight, something is interesting there, and more than welcome to add your comments to the classes. And I'm looking forward to how the classes develop in the future, and which classes we use in future campaigns, because as I said, for quite a few classes, there are classes that I want to use more in the future, that I think there's interesting ways to play them, interesting ways to utilize them. And that's the fun part of XCOM. But for now, we're gonna call it here. If you made it this far, Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.